Welcome back to Joe Stunner Boxing. It comes as no surprise that Don Charles has been sacked by Daniel Dubois, or more importantly, Daniel Dubois' team. That's probably a more accurate assessment. Um, and this comes off the back of Dubois' 5-round knockout defeat to Alexander Usyk, a rematch. He lost his WB, no, he didn't, his IBF heavyweight title. And I always got the feeling that, like a lot of you lot, I'm sure that Don Charles was really just a sort of stand-in guy. I never got the feeling he held the reins, that he was the lone voice in the, well, he certainly wasn't the lone voice in the corner because there was all sorts of chaos going on. And as usual, we get back to the subject of Daniel's father, Stan Dubois. Now, there's two ways of looking at Don Charles's tenure as Daniel Dubois' manager. As Daniel Dubois' trainer. There's two ways of looking at it. The first fight that they had together was the first fight with Usyk, which ended in that, fake controversy of was it a low blow or wasn't it? And they lost. Daniel lost. He quit, essentially. Then he came back with 3 great wins over Big Baby Miller, Hrgovic, which is an excellent win, and then, of course, Wembley Stadium destroying Anthony Joshua. And this was a fantastic run of form. He was meant to fight Joseph Parker to defend his IBF title, but something happened. He was sick. That was the storyline. It's one I think is probably true. I don't share the conspiracy theories. And then he bumped into Usyk again and got smashed to bits. So there's been a complete upheaval of the team. But Don Charles, during his tenure as trainer, did not cover himself with any sort of class. He was very disrespectful towards Usyk, casting aspersions on his, Christian faith and the fact that he apparently is a liar and a cheat because, he feigned injury in that first fight with the low blow that Don Charles says wasn't. Don Charles came across as being an extremely bitter, nasty-minded sort of person. And yet there he was, kowtowing to Daniel's team, not least of all the head one, which was the head of the team, which is actually Stan Dubois. Now, let's not forget that before he got knocked out by Usyk, there was all that, for want of a better word, controversy with the little get-together. Is that how they phrased it? The get-together before the fight. Daniel arrived late to Wembley Stadium for the fight. There were all sorts of people, hangers-on, and it was just, the whole thing was just a sort of clusterfuck of stupidities, really, especially for a guy who's going into an undisputed heavyweight title fight at Wembley Stadium. And of course, Don probably could have said, I don't want this. I'm the lone voice in the corner. I'm the head trainer. I'm the governor. He wouldn't have been listened to. And probably, if he'd had a little bit more respect rather than wallowing in this sort of late life glory, he would have said, no, I'm out. Either we do things my way because I am the governor, I am the trainer, or we don't do them at all. And this harks back to a couple of people who were linked as trainers to Daniel. One, Mark Tibbs, and the other is Shane McGuigan. Mark Tibbs couldn't put up with the father. Neither could Shane McGuigan. And in fact, there was a rift between Daniel and Stan and Keiran Dubois, who is in her own right a world champion. And now Caroline doesn't speak to her father or to Daniel, which is very sad when a family gets divided like that. But that basically, I think that whole toxic element put Shane McGuigan off training Daniel. And he has continued to train Caroline. So the whole family thing for quite a few years now has been considered to be, like the word I used was toxic. I think that's probably accurate. Stan Dubois comes across as being an absolute draconian dictator, And Daniel, we know, is not the brightest bulb in the floodlight, and is also very well. I always say he's on the spectrum. He's on the either he's autistic or he's got Asperger's or something. And I don't mean that insultingly. Daniel Dubois is okay, but he's not very bright, and he is essentially very robotic, programmed to do X, Y, Z. And if ABC crops up instead of X, Y, Z, he is left completely without a clue of how to adapt, other than to perhaps throw punches. So it's not really a surprise that Don is out. And who's in? Tony SIMS, apparently, is the one that's been called upon to take over. If I was training Daniel Dubois, I would instantly say to the father, "You're out. I don't want to hear your name anywhere near the camp. I train your son. If you're hiring me to do a job, let me do it, because I am not going to simply be, the name that fills the role. If you're hiring me as a trainer, you let me do my job." I don't think that would happen. In fact, when you consider the amount of trainers, was it Martin Bowers was a trainer for Dubois at one point as well? No, I just think that I think there's just too much baggage with Daniel. And again, it's all down to the father's dictatorial role in this whole sorry affair. Now, you could say, well, Daniel's earned millions of pounds. So clearly if his father is dominating him, he's doing something right because he's guided his son to millions of pounds. Okay, all right, that's an argument that can be made. But to pick up the reins now, at this particular point, now that he's got 3 defeats on his record, all of which have been essentially quits, I think it's a thankless task. I do. But anyway, look, give me your opinion. Let me know if I haven't said anything that you think is relevant, or if you agree with me. That's fine. If not, you're welcome to disagree. Comments below, and of course, please subscribe to the channel and hit the like button if you enjoyed the video. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Looking forward to hearing what you've got to say. Bye for now.